Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be the case of Reagan Tokes. Reagan was born on March 13th, 1995 in Edgewood, Kentucky. Her favorite color was Tiffany blue, and that is a nice color. Her dream, ever since she was a little girl, her father could tell you, I've watched so many interviews, well, one interview in particular with her parents and her sister, and they said that she was obsessed with going to Ohio State University since she was a little girl. That was her dream. That's all she talked about, all she wanted to do. Her mother even told her, hey Reagan, don't you want to expand your options, open your options to different universities, different schools? But no, she did not want to go to any other school but Ohio State University. And that is exactly what she did. She attended Ohio State University and she was supposed to graduate with a degree in psychology in May of 2017. But unfortunately, she didn't. Her plans were to work at Cleveland Clinic in Cleveland, Ohio while she was starting graduate school. Her ultimate dream was to open up her own practice. On February 8th, 2017, Reagan is now 21 years old and she was working at a restaurant called Bodega, and she was just about finishing her shift. At around 9:45, Reagan started walking to her car and she drove a silver Acura. As Reagan was walking to her car, Brian Goldsby was walking by that street at the same time that she was walking to her car. So it was a complete coincidence. It was wrong place at the wrong time, and when he saw her, he pulled out a gun, told her to get in her car, and she complied. Brian got in the passenger side of Reagan's car and told her, everything's gonna be fine, I just want some money. So she complied with him and he forced her to drive to a Chase ATM where he forced her to attempt to withdraw $500. At around 10:04 p.m., you can see Reagan on the CCTV attempting to withdraw the $500, but the transaction was declined. Brian then forced Reagan to drive to another ATM to withdraw money, but again, the transaction was declined. Based on GPS information, because Brian did have a GPS tracking device on his ankle, I believe it was an ankle monitor to monitor him, he was a criminal. So due to this GPS tracking device, it placed him in a alleyway for about 12 minutes. So it was between 10:18 and 10:30 p.m. at night. And it's believed that that is where he raped Reagan. Brian then forced Reagan to drive back to the Chase ATM and withdraw $60, which was successful. He then forced her to drive to a Sonico gas station, and this was caught on CCTV. CCTV can also detect Reagan's car driving away from the gas station at around 11:43 p.m. Brian then forced Reagan to drive to Socoto Grove Metro Park. I think that's how you say it. I watched so many videos on this case and I still, like, now filming the video, I'm like, how do you say it? But he forced her to drive to a park. He then told her to remove all of her clothing, which she did, and he forced her out of the car. Reagan was begging for her life, but Brian Goldsby showed no remorse. His GPS tracking monitor had him at this park for 3 minutes. So everything that happened took place in only 3 minutes. Brian Goldsby made Reagan walk into an open field completely naked. He then placed the barrel of the gun to her head and shot her twice, execution style. She was shot through the left side of her face and the back of her head. Brian Goldsby later stated that before Reagan was killed, before he murdered her, her last words were, I just want to live. Brian Goldsby then got back into Reagan's car where he drove to his girlfriend's house. He gave his girlfriend Reagan's Kate Spade purse, and he also gave his girlfriend the $60 that he stole from Reagan as a Valentine's Day gift. So this man is a piece of shit. He's a piece of shit. I'm trying to just tell the story without putting in my opinion, but it's hard. He's a piece of dirt shit. Later on, Brian then threw the gun and the shell casings into a sewage drainage. He then attempted to light the car on fire. Clearly, he was not educated on how to burn something, as specifically a car. so he gave up and he left. Brian Goldsby had a long criminal history, and this history started from when he was very young. It started out with trespassing, shoplifting, theft. He even pulled out a knife on his own mother. His first arrest was in 2010. He came behind a woman that was exiting her car and forced her in the car at gunpoint. He then forced her to perform oral sex on him. Mind you, this woman was pregnant and she was almost due. So she was heavily pregnant and her 2-year-old son was in the car with her. It was said that she had to place her hands over her baby's eyes so he wouldn't see what was going on. Brian then forced the woman to drive to different ATMs to try to take out money. After that, he forced her to go to her home, which he went with her. He followed her home and, well, not followed her, they went together, but he went with her home, and he then forced her again to perform oral sex on him when they were in her house. This case is so frustrating. Brian Goldsby then proceeded to force the woman to brush her teeth because he wanted to get rid of any of his DNA. And he forced her to brush, and then he wanted her to spit as well. He wanted to see that everything was gone from her mouth, and then he just left. Oh, but before he left, he did steal her DVD player. So he's a real charmer. Brian thought he was so smart, but later on, DNA was found at the first crime scene where he forced her to perform oral sex on him in the car park. So they did find his DNA there, and they also found his DNA in her bedroom. The woman was afraid to testify against Brian Goldsby, so he accepted a plea deal so he wouldn't have to go to trial. It was said that she was scared of testifying against him because he threatened her. He said that he was in a gang and that if she testified against him, he would have his gang members come and find her and harm her and her baby. So she didn't want to take that chance, so she declined testifying against him. I completely understand. You know, he's a scary man. She's pregnant, she has a baby, so she chose what was best for her, and she probably didn't trust that the police would keep her safe. For this crime, Brian Goldsby got 6 years in prison, and he was released only 3 months before he killed Reagan, before he murdered Reagan. The most frustrating part about this is that while he was in prison, he got into multiple problems and issues. He had about 52 infractions, and this included possession of contraband, fighting, stealing, creating disturbances, and many more. This man was so out of control that in his 6-year prison sentence, he was sent to 5 different prisons because he was so out of control. And unfortunately, they did not extend his sentence. He just did his 6 years and that was it. Frustrating. When he was released from prison, he was given a court-ordered GPS ankle monitor, but no one was tracking his ankle monitor. His ankle monitor would die. No one would notice. He wouldn't get in trouble for it. He would have a curfew on when he should be back home. So at this time, he was staying in a court-ordered group home, and this is a place where they put offenders that don't have anywhere to live. And there was a curfew, and he would not abide by the curfew, and again, nothing was done about it. No one informed the police. No one was tracking his GPS monitor, so essentially it was like he didn't have one on. It was like an accessory, you know. It wasn't put into good use, so he had the free range to do whatever he wanted, and this is exactly what he did. If they were checking this ankle monitor, he would have been sent back to prison because he violated the protocol 1,000 million times, but no one was checking it, so nothing was done about it, and he had the ability to go on and commit this freaking disgusting crime. Brian also committed a lot of different crimes while he was out of prison that there was no repercussions for. He was not sent back to prison for. In January of 2017, he robbed a woman at knife point and stole $3 from her. Again, in January 2017, he robbed another woman and stole a few gift cards. In February of 2017, he robbed a man of $20, and obviously these crimes were committed before he went to murdering Reagan, which is so unfortunate because this man should have been in prison. After his third violation, robbing that man, he was scheduled for a hearing on February 23rd, but they didn't deem it severe enough to revoke his parole, so they kept him out of prison. If he was sent back to prison, he would have never met Reagan. Brian Galsby also committed multiple other crimes. He pistol whipped the woman and robbed her of $38. He also robbed another woman of her belongings. So he was just a thief. He was a disgusting human being. He had no respect for women. He had no respect for human life. So this is a man that doesn't deserve to walk the same earth that we're walking. But he was. So let's get back to Reagan. So Reagan and her family were extremely close. At this time, they did live in Florida. It was her mom and her dad and her sister, her one sister, Mackenzie. And they always kept in contact. They were a very close family. So the night of her murder, her dad texted with her. She did say she was going to call him when she got out of work. So of course he was awaiting her call, and he never got one, and he was extremely worried. He did continue calling Reagan. He continued to text her, and at about 2 a.m. her phone just went completely dead. Her dad immediately knew something was wrong. This was not like Reagan at all. She's very responsible and just very close to her family. Like, she genuinely loved her family and loved speaking with them, being that they were so far away, and she would not call them, not call her dad when she said she would. Reagan's parents, whose names are Toby and Lisa, they did move to Florida a year before Reagan started college, and Reagan just didn't move with them because she just didn't see a point in moving, especially when she was going to start in Ohio State University, so she decided not to move with them. The next day, the family, of course, was extremely worried about Reagan, so her sister, Reagan's sister Mackenzie, it's her younger sister, they're very close in age, she decided to call Reagan's roommate and ask her if she's seen Reagan, and the roommate said no, but she's going to check her room. When she checked her room, her bed was still made and all her material for school was still there. So that implied that she never came home and that she isn't at school because her school material is there. And that is very unlike Reagan. So Mackenzie did decide to call Ohio State University to inquire about Reagan's whereabouts and see if she went to class that day. And she was notified that Reagan did not attend her morning classes. So immediately the family was terrified. They were terrified, and they were thinking the worst. Reagan's parents immediately called the police to file a missing persons report. They were told that they couldn't file the missing persons report because they weren't the last people to see Reagan. So her co-workers at her workplace at Bodega had to call in and file the missing person report. Mackenzie then went onto social media and posted about the disappearance of her sister, pleading for anyone that knows any information to come forward. Her friends also posted about Reagan's disappearance, and the post did go viral. Meanwhile, this is the next day, a man was walking through Sakota Grove State Park and he found Reagan's body at about 12 p.m. He did think it was a mannequin, but when he got closer, he did realize that it was a young girl. And this park was about 2 miles away from her workplace. As soon as he realized that it was a body, he called the police. Detectives were able to identify Reagan's body with a tattoo that she had and also a necklace. Her roommate did confirm these identifying factors on her to get the identification process faster, so they did confirm that it was Reagan, and it was said that later on her uncle did go to the morgue to identify her body, and it was confirmed to be Reagan Tokes. Reagan's car was found in the southeast side of Columbus, and it was about 10 miles from the park. The car was abandoned. The police did notice that someone tried to set the car on fire. They did find cigarette butts in the car and around the car, and they also found a gas can in the car as well. Later on, this would be tested and come back to confirm the DNA of Brian Galsby. They looked into Brian's whereabouts using the GPS tracking monitor that he had, and they confirmed that he was in the park at the time of the murder. He was at all of the ATM locations. GPS tracking monitor also put him in the place where Reagan's body was found. Brian Goldsby was arrested on February 11, 2017, 3 days after the crime was committed, so it was pretty fast. They had so much evidence. Brian Goldsby admitted to kidnapping Reagan and forcing her to go to the ATMs. He also admitted to forcing her to drive to the park and taking off all her clothes, but he denied raping her and he denied having a gun. He said he doesn't own a gun. He's never shot a gun. The police knew that Brian was lying. They did do a rape kit on Reagan and they did find his DNA on her, but they did still allow him to continue on with his story. They wanted to see where he was going to take it. Brian Goldsby was just going on and on and on in the interrogation room, claiming that he's innocent. He did not kill her. He did not rape her. He just wanted money. He doesn't know what happened to her. So I'm pretty sure the police concocted this plan. They were like, okay, let's ask him if there was a third person. Like, try to get him to talk more and blame it all on the third person, knowing that it's him because we have all the DNA. But to get him to talk, let's just say, oh, was there a third person, Brian? Tell us. We know you didn't do it. So they did go in there and they asked him, Brian, tell us the truth. Was there a third person? And he started getting super emotional. He started crying and he said, yes, there was a third person. So he just fell into the trap.
Just rather call the cops, for real. I could have, but at the same time, I didn't want to promote maybe jeopardy.
He began to say that he was also the victim as well as Reagan. They were both victims in this situation. He mentioned the man named TJ. He said TJ was this third man and TJ forced him to kidnap someone. He said that TJ threatened to harm his children if he did not get money that night. He said he was also forced at gunpoint to rape Reagan. So he admitted to raping Reagan, but he did say that it was forced and he didn't want to, but he was scared for his life and the life of his children. He also claimed that TJ was the one that shot her and he begged for her not to be shot, but you know, TJ did shoot her. He saw TJ shoot her. He then proceeded to direct police to where they can find the gun and where they can find Reagan's clothes. And honestly, I don't know what he was thinking. Like, I don't get it. His DNA is all over everything, but I don't know, I think he thought the cops were stupid. I think he thought he was smarter than them and they would believe his story about a third man. But yeah, so they directed him to the gun, which is great, and her clothes, which is wonderful. When police tested the gun, they found Reagan's blood inside the barrel of the gun, confirming that she was shot at close range, execution style. And they also found Brian Goldsby's DNA on the gun. They did do a swab as well, you know, as much evidence as you have to do that as procedure. They did do a swab and it also confirmed his DNA was everywhere. Trial began on March 5th, 2018. He stood trial on 9 counts, which included aggravated murder, aggravated robbery, kidnapping, and rape. He didn't take the stand, but the videotape of his interrogation was played to the jurors, so they did see him going back and forth with his story, and they did see him being a lying piece of shit. Although Brian told the police this bogus-ass story about what happened to Reagan, he did admit to his friends and family that he did kill someone. So yeah. He also told his girlfriend that he killed someone, and they all did testify against him in court. On March 15th, which would be Reagan's 22nd birthday, Brian was found guilty, convicted on all charges. It took jurors only 5 hours to come to this verdict. There was 2 jurors that voted against the death penalty, so he got life in prison without the possibility of parole. Reagan's dad said that if he was a juror, he would have definitely voted for the death penalty, but we'll take it. Judge Mark Surratt, I believe that's how you say his name, stated, Reagan did nothing wrong whatsoever, and yet she forfeited her life of your background. You get spared because of your background, and yet she forfeited her life. Brian Goldsby did plead with the jurors to spare his life. He did speak a bit about his childhood and how rough his childhood was. 2 of the jurors did feel sorry for him and didn't want to sentence him to death. And it has to be unanimous. Everyone has to vote for death, so they did give him life in prison without the possibility of parole. The Tokes family began to work with lawmakers to come up with new legislation called the Reagan Tokes Act, which included offenders who act up in prison getting their sentence extended, right? Because Brian was released and he had so many offenses that should have kept him in jail longer. And if he was in jail longer, he wouldn't have murdered Reagan. They also came up with this legislation that required real-time monitoring on the GPS tracking device, because clearly they were not tracking his GPS tracking device right then and there, right? They were not keeping up with it. So they wanted real-time monitoring. Someone would be watching him at all times because he is a dangerous offender. So yeah, they worked hard to get that done. And this family is so beautiful. I am just so heartbroken by this case. You don't understand. Like, this case really affected me when I did the research for it. It still affects me right now because it could have been me. I could have been, you know how many times I've walked out of work at late hours and walked to my car? It could be anyone. The community and investigators were extremely affected by Reagan's case. It was just a devastating blow to the community to lose such a beautiful, smart girl. Reagan was awarded her degree in psychology from the Ohio State University, which her parents and sister Mackenzie did accept on her behalf, which is great. I love that they did that. A tranquility garden was dedicated in Reagan's memory at Socoto Grove Metro Park. A plaque was also placed there in her favorite color, which I said was Tiffany blue, which read, "In memory of a life so beautifully lived and a heart so deeply loved." Her mother, you know, I was watching her and she said she really has to keep her head up because she does have another daughter and she deserves to live a great life. So she does have to be strong for her other daughter. You know, she can't collapse and just let go because she does have Mackenzie. And I'm so grateful for that. You know, I'm an only child, so God forbid if my mom loses me, you know, I don't even want to think about that because we're really, really close. So I am happy that they had Mackenzie because at the end of the day, you know, that really helps. I think it really does. But let me know what you guys think about this case. Please leave me comments down below. Have you heard about this case before? Is this your first time hearing about it? I would definitely recommend doing more research. There's so much information out there about Brian Galsby that I didn't say. It's just a long history. Obviously, so much more information about Reagan. I just wanted to summarize it a little bit. I just wish the family so much peace, and I hope they're doing okay. Please subscribe to my channel for more videos. I would appreciate it so much. Make sure you like the video before you leave. It helps me out. And let me know down below if there's any cases you want me to cover. And it doesn't have to be cases. You can leave me video suggestions on anything. I'm very open to filming any content that you'd like to see. I'm not only a true crime YouTuber. I love to put my feet into everything, but I am passionate about these cases because I want to bring awareness to what happens. You know, life is so crazy. Like, we're just walking up and down the street, as we should. You know, we should all have a strive for a great life, but things are happening out there that we're just unaware of, and it's really good to be knowledgeable about the bad side of the world. You know, it keeps you grounded, it keeps you aware, it keeps you on your toes, as you should be. Look around you when you walk in your car. Always, I don't know, there's a lot of defensive techniques you can do. I watched Stephanie Harlow and Derek. Oh my god, I am so bad. This is horrible. I watch them all the time with Derek Velasser. And he was a previous cop, and he does sell defense items that you can purchase for your safety. So I am going to look into that and purchase it because as a woman, as a person, you know, it's really good to have something to defend yourself in a situation like that. But again, thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Stay safe out there, okay?